Hi everyone, welcome to our live stream today. So I'm pleased to say that I'm with Michelle Cowan from Socialsendr. So I'm going to ask Michelle to introduce herself in a second. But as usual with these live videos, for anyone, if you're watching it, please do, if you've got any questions or comments as we go through, please feel free to put them into the comment boxes. We are on, so this particular one, we're on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn, and we're also on Twitter, actually. So we're on 3 different platforms. So please do comment and ask any questions. If you are watching it on playback, whether it's, again, on the social media channels or on our YouTube page, again, put any comments in and I can always put them to Michelle at a later date. So I won't tell everyone too much about you because I'll let you do that, Michelle. So do you want to introduce yourself and tell you? And obviously today we're going to be talking about your journey from the corporate world to a startup.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. So I suppose I've got what's sometimes termed as a portfolio career. I left my corporate career back in 2017 in the summer. And 3 years later, I've sort of now got this situation where I've got quite a lot of stuff going on. So my primary focus is Justo Software, which is a business that I formed 2.5 years ago with my business partner, Bren. And we set up that business to bring software ideas to life. We've got one software product, which is currently on the market, called Socialsendr. And that's an app that is really for sole traders and small businesses that need a bit of a lift with social media. So they're challenged with either time or inspiration, or perhaps they don't have enough budget to pay somebody to do it for them. And it's a very simple app that they can use to help them with the social media. So that's my main focus. And we've been working on building that product, getting that product to market and growing the number of subscribers that we've got. We've sort of diversified in the last sort of 3 to 6 months, looking at license opportunities and franchise, looking to rebrand our product as a white label product. So that's quite exciting. My other focus is I have a non-exec director's role with a software development company called Torchbearer based in Huddersfield. And I do a couple of days a month for them, really enjoy it. It's a young team out of Huddersfield University. It's really exciting. I've got a kind of a mentor sponsor type role with the team there, but to be honest, they totally inspire me. So it sort of works in a reverse manner in that way. And I absolutely love that role. The other thing that I do is I have a consultancy business. I don't do lots of it. It's around growth strategy consultancy. And that's a bit of a hangover from my career at Cisco. So I've spent my whole career in sales roles and, over 20 years in corporate life. So I've got a lot of experience with the selling function, but also in the sort of latter part of my career, I spent a lot of time doing strategy and planning on a global basis for a global account. So I've sort of taken the lessons that I learned at Cisco with that and put that into a formula and a methodology to help other businesses. Now, my sweet spot there is generally tech startups, but I do work with other businesses. So I've worked with lots of different sectors, and that's something that I like to keep my hand in. I might do a couple of those a month. I don't do retained work, but I do just one-off engagements with a very, very clear, defined output. And then the other thing that I do, which is a hobby, is I co-host the Two Northern Lasses podcast with Jane Adamson. And we started that just short of a year ago, and we've had a lot of fun. It's been really great. We've had some fabulous guests, and I can't believe that we're sort of at the end of the year nearly. And that's proved to be sort of more interesting than we thought. And actually, was a lifesaver during the first lockdown, because we moved from fortnightly to weekly episodes, and it just sort of kept us going. So that's me.
So you're keeping yourself quite busy, Michelle, by the sounds of it. Anyway, that's for certain. So, and I'd be interested in that. I've worked for corporate companies, obviously, and started up a business as well. But I've kind of had relatively like 3, 4, 5 years in one area, and then moved into a smaller business. But you obviously spent quite a long time in the corporate world before you're doing what you do now. What do you think the big differences are between working and kind of the whole life in a corporate environment and a smaller startup environment?
So they are very, very different. And actually, when I quit my career, I didn't actually appreciate how different it was. One of the reasons that I did walk away from my career was to have a better work-life balance. And I didn't want to be working 80 hours of work and traveling the world anymore. I wanted to spend more time with my family. So definitely the balance is different. You know, when you work for a corporate, you're basically in. When I was thinking about leaving, I took advice from a number of people around whether, you know, I was making the right decision, trying to sort of validate what was behind me leaving and what I was going to do. And to be honest, I had no idea what I was going to do. And a mentor of mine said to me at the time, the problem is you're institutionalized. And I laugh now because I was horrified when he said that to me, because I was just like, gosh, you know, how am I going to get another job? Well, clearly he knew, because, you know, I'd got a lot of skills, and, you know, I was approached by many corporates when I left my job, similar companies to Cisco in the tech field, offering me the same type of job, which is not what I wanted. But then when you start looking around, the skill sets that you need to work with a smaller company, you generally need a kind of different skill set. So whilst the corporate helps you understand structure, departments, governance, procedure, all that goes into running a really large organization, when you go to the lower end, to a smaller business, or like me, you set up on your own, the biggest shock was for me that I was everything. You know, I'm the HR manager, I'm the marketing manager, I'm the accountant. And, you know, you do realize that, yes, you've got some core skills, but I absolutely detest anything to do with the numbers. So the bookkeeping to me is just an absolute minefield. It's the first thing that I looked at outsourcing when I started on my own. I was just like, right, how can I get rid of this as soon as we can afford? That is the first person I'm going to bring in, which is what I did. So lot of differences. You don't get the flexibility with corporate that you do with the small business, and I guess you don't get to try and do everything. And now I meet people that run their own businesses, and they're jack of all trades. They're wearing every single hat, and I love that about, you know, the diversity of the sort of sole trader and the small business leader.
So it's interesting you say that, Michelle. I remember when I went from I worked for a big corporate bank, and then went to work for a smaller business. It wasn't a tight, there were about 40 employees. I remember I was always asking if I could do things like you would in a corporate world. You have to check everything, and everything's very compliance heavy, especially obviously in the banking industry. I remember after a while, someone just said to me, just get on and do it. And it's such a different, as I would probably look at, I had a bit of a taste of the kind of going down the scale a little bit, but yeah, it's interesting, the difference, isn't it? Do you think it helps or it hinders somebody if you were starting your business, if you haven't been in the corporate world?
I'm not really sure. I do think it's helped me, just from the whole business planning, and I've had a lot of training, and that's something that I'm massively grateful for. Which, you know, when you work for a corporate, they've got big training budgets a lot of the time, and so I've been really fortunate that I've been heavily invested in. So, you know, I think that that's something as well that corporates do instill in you, that, you know, your continuous learning development is very important, and, you know, scheduling and prioritizing time on yourself is really big in corporate land. So I've definitely benefited from that. And, you know, I didn't go on every course going, but I've been on a lot of training and development programs, which I know has helped me develop as a person, which has equipped me to basically run my business. So I don't think it's hindered me. I definitely think it's helped me.
Would you, kind of using the example of what I did, and it was very much by accident more than anything else, would you say to someone that if you have had a decent, in terms of length, career in a corporate world, to maybe go work for a smaller business before you set up your own, just to kind of see what the difference is? Would you do that differently?
Yeah, I mean, I never did that. I just sort of threw myself in it. I had an idea and I went and found a business partner, and I sort of, you know, went through the steps of setting up the business. Definitely would have done things differently, I think, had I got that time again. But I haven't, and, you know, I'm here now. So, no, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's obviously everybody's different, aren't they? That's the thing. And I mean, there's no right or wrong answer, really, is there? I guess it's if you can, but the circumstances don't always mean that you can. And that, like I said, there's benefits, probably, and negatives to both. I'd be interested to know your kind of thoughts generally on, I guess, more it's kind of the working world, but specifically around corporates. We all know what's happened this year in 2020. There's been a huge shift in the world, and a lot of people working from home, no traveling. People have experienced more flexibility that, as you've probably touched on earlier, you don't get so much in the corporate world. When this is all kind of done and we're back to normal world, do you think there's going to be a big shift in corporate environments from what they was before and the standard way of doing things?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that shift's already started to happen in a big way. I mean, I've mentioned I worked for Cisco. It was often talked about as one of the biggest virtual companies in the world. So they were utilizing video communications years ago. You know, they were one of the first companies that really embraced high-end video as a way of communicating, and really sort of interactive web meetings. So I definitely have seen that sort of develop over the years, and that's before COVID. But for those corporates that weren't set up for that kind of communication, clearly had to get involved fairly rapidly. And the opportunity to not work in the office, you know, something had to be done. So I can see that already, just from my peers and people that I know that in corporate, that they're working differently, and can't really envisage a time when things are going to go back to normal, or if this is the new normal, working remotely, finding different spaces to work, using different forms of communication, and making it work. Now, if you can get the balance right and work from home and have that more time at home with family, or just having more time to do different things, then I can see that that's going to work positively for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the interesting things might be that our education system, and very much the way our things have run in this country for a lot of years now, is, you know, you get your exam results so you can go and work for a company and make your way up the ladder, and, you know, all that kind of traditional method. And I think it's always been very desirable to work for a big company because the more opportunities, because the more jobs are, more opportunities. And I think it's a critical point now, is if they don't embrace a more agile, flexible work-life balance, that actually it'll become a lot more desirable to work for smaller business or set up your own business. And maybe that's where the shift, and that they'll have to get that right, because then the best people will not want to work in that environment if they don't shift it relatively quickly. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I mean, I've got my own real example. I've got two boys in lower six and upper six, and they're both working from home at the moment because of our isolation in our house. So they literally follow their timetable. The classes are live streamed. They're just sat in the rooms at the desks and they're engaging in lessons. They don't seem too fussed about it. Yes, they're missing the social interaction, and we're in lockdown now, so there's going to be less of that.
Yeah.
But it's almost like they're more accepting of it. And again, that's going to become the norm for them. I'll be really surprised if they finish their school years this year in anywhere near what not last year was, but the previous year, because it's just all different now. They've got used to it, and will they still want to go to uni? Because again, that's this kind of a virtual experience as opposed to the life experience that many students have enjoyed in the past. So the jump to work might be quicker than before. And my eldest is looking for degree apprenticeships at the moment, and there's not so many out there now. So, the list that he perhaps would have looked at 6 months ago is not the same list now. So I think that he'll have to start thinking a little bit differently, and, the big names, big brands that he wants to look at, he's probably going to have to come up with another list, which may include smaller companies.
No, absolutely. So, I mean, on that point, actually, it's interesting if one of your sons came to you and whether it's before or after university, whatever they decide to do, and said, "I don't know what to do, join Cisco or just insert large corporate, or start up my own business, or work for them, join with a friend and set up a business." What would you say to them at that point? What advice would you give?
Do you know, I'm a great believer in giving children opportunities so that they can make their own choices. So I would always encourage them to, go with the gut, or maybe over the head. But from my own experience, I absolutely loved my corporate career. I had a fantastic time. I was really looked after when I became a parent. I just had a really great career. I don't have any regrets. I do feel sad sometimes when I look back and think about the time that I gave to the corporate when it could have been spent elsewhere. But that time's gone now, and I made the decision, when I was 48 to sort of walk away. And at that point, I felt like I'd had my career. And so anything that I did sort of after that was going to be, who knows? Would I have set my business up earlier? I doubt it. It worked for me at the time to still be in corporate, but it's not something that I want anymore for me in my life. I mean, I appreciate that lots of people in fantastic corporate careers, but it was time for me to try something different. And
yeah, I think it's really interesting, Michelle. That it's kind of the general rule of thumb of, if you set up your own business, you got the flexibility and the lifestyle and all that kind of thing. And if you're in a corporate environment, you've not. But I think one of the, and this is my experience personally, and I'm sure other people, is that one of the downsides of your own business is, even if you are physically there, sometimes you're not always mentally there with, so you're at home, but because of the emotional attachment to your business, you are thinking about it and maybe not in, doing whatever you're, whether it's family or friends and things like that. So I don't think it should be romanticized so much, this of setting you up on your own business, that you're going to be there and see more of your family. Okay, physically you might see them more, but there is that other side to consider as well. And it's something I've learned. I don't know about yourself as well in the last few years.
Yeah, I'm smiling because I am totally emotionally attached to my business. So it is really difficult to not do something with your own business. But I think that the enjoyment level is higher. It feels more rewarding. So, I mean, I have a bit of a rule myself, which I try to not work before 10 o'clock in the morning. I try and get up, do what I need to do with my family, walk my dog, make sure I do some exercise, and then I kind of start work. But, you know, if a phone call comes in and says, you know, we've got 50 people that want to use your app, will you do a call at 8:30? Clearly I'll do that. But yeah, I know what you mean about you sort of at work, but you're distracted. And do you switch off? I don't know. I try to, but I don't think you ever truly do when it's your own business, especially if you're passionate about it and you care so much, because the attachment's greater.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest downside of running your own business, actually, you know, because you do care and you do want to make it work, and it's a very emotive thing, and I think it's one of the hardest things. Whereas, you know, I said, having myself, and I'm sure there's lots of people watch who you work in a corporate or just kind of any, should we say, normal job, you can detach yourself a little bit easier. When you go on holiday, you can forget about it because you know it's kind of still happening. But then again, on the flip side, I think what you've said about the enjoyment element, I know when I was in the corporate world, actually, if I just disappeared and never came back, it wouldn't really make a difference to the business, really. There'd be some short-term pain, but they could get someone to fill in. But my impact is minimal, whereas the impact on my business is huge. And obviously that's where the satisfaction comes in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, nobody's irreplaceable in the corporate world. Yes, like you say, there's some short-term pain, but when you're in the corporate world, you're generally part of a team and people can cover for you. And so, yeah, bit of disruption, but yeah, you can be replaced, and probably quite quickly. But, you know, if I'm out of my business for a week, which, you know, I was recently, then you can feel it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So obviously you've been running a business a few years now. What if someone came to you and said, I'm thinking about starting my own business, what type of advice would you give them? Because I think you're at a point where you can kind of remember the very early stages and the mistakes that I'm sure you made and things like that. But also you've had that bit more experience now. So what would you say to someone, and what things would you advise them to do?
Yeah, there's a few things. I sought out a business partner when I started out, because I knew that I was missing a very defined skill set. Particularly, I was looking for a creative marketer, and I found one. And my business partner, Bren, fits that role. We have each other, so we can bounce ideas off each other. We don't always agree, but we've got a way of working together that helps. So I would definitely advise somebody setting up their own business to really think hard about whether it's something they want to do on their own or something they can share with somebody. And when I say share, I mean share, because, you know, you can't ask somebody to come into a business with you with nothing. So that I would consider that. The loneliness is there. It's real. If you ask any sole trader or small business owner, it's lonely. So accept that, but then build something around yourself. So, you know, explore your network, understand who's in your network that either would like to help you or would like to be involved, or maybe you can help them with something with their business. But I think the network is absolutely critical. And years ago, when I was on a training course, somebody introduced a concept to me called, you know, having your own board of directors. And this was, you know, understanding who in your sort of core circle takes on different roles. And so I'd be like, if I wanted to feel good about myself, I used to ring my boss's boss, and he'd start every conversation with, "You're awesome, you're doing great." Yeah. So I left the call, you know, being really sort of motivated. And then if I've had this go-to person, if I wanted to sort of have a moan or throw my toys out of the pram when it's something that is not fair on either my business partner or the people that are working with me, I would have that go-to person. So I think if you think about surrounding yourself with people that can fill those roles for you, so that you don't feel so isolated and you feel part of a team. Then, these people are people that you trust. And that's been really good advice for me. And I've continued to do that. I've done that for years. And, call them what you like: mentors, sponsors, coaches. And you probably, if you look at yourself, Mike, you've probably got those people that do those roles for you, and you probably do that role for somebody else without maybe realizing it. So I think, surround yourself with the right people, because also there will be things that you can't do in your business. Like I mentioned, the bookkeeping, and somebody can do that for me. So as long as the business can afford it, then somebody will do that. So, be open to outsourcing the skills that you don't have yourself, because it absolutely takes ages when you try and do something that you're not able to do properly. When you can go to somebody and that's their role and they're really, really good at it and can do it in half the time that you can, because that's what they do. So I appreciate that startups don't have a lot of money. We've been there. It's difficult. But work out a plan for, as soon as you get some revenue coming in, what bits are you going to outsource, or can you afford to take on a member of staff that can cover some of that?
Yeah, I mean, Michelle, if someone asked me that question, basically what you've said is very similar to me. Surround yourself with good people and understanding that your skill set is only so wide. We can only do, you kind of touched on it in the corporate world, that you have people to do all these different things, where that's just the same in a small business. You can do probably a lot of the tasks to a reasonable level, but that's never going to take you to where maybe you want to get to. So over time, what can you pass on to people who are better than you at, I guess is one thing I'd always say to someone. And that's all about understanding your strengths and what you're good at and what you're not good at, probably more importantly as well. I know for me, I really struggled to jump between kind of very different tasks. I mean, let's use the great example of bookkeeping. To have finished this live video with you and have this discussion and then go to do my bookkeeping, it would take me 3 times longer than it should, because I can't change that mindset into it. So, and I think that's one of the things I've learned. It's really important to be able to, like I said, outsource or have someone else doing things like that is crucial. So just to finish, Michelle, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing now in terms of, and obviously with the Socialsendr you kind of briefly touched on before, kind of what it is and how it works for businesses?
Yeah, so the main part of the business is that we have a subscription model. The product is $9.99 a month, and based on your preferences, the app will serve up content which is actually relevant to your industry and your interests. That content is fully editable. You can change the words, you can change the pictures, you can use your own hashtags, you can put your URL in if you want a call to action. You can also add in your own posts. So it's a content scheduling tool, but it is also offering up inspiration for those people that are really struggling to know what to write. And the feedback that we've had from everybody that we talk to is, I never know what to write, I'm not consistent enough, and I can't afford to pay somebody. So we built the app to try and sort of level the playing field for those sole traders and small businesses to really be able to have a presence for their brand on social media. Now, it currently connects to Facebook for business and business pages, and also to Twitter. And just last week, we started the development for LinkedIn integration. So hopefully by the new year, we will have that. And we'll add that to our social channels. in addition, which I sort of mentioned earlier, we've got white label opportunities for organisations like a franchise, really, who have got multiple people in their group or association that need help with social media. So we would take our app and with the customer's branding, turn it into what looks like would be their own app. So we're currently working with a business at the moment on bringing our first white label product to market. That should be March next year.
Brilliant. Thank you, Michelle. So if anyone wants to find out a bit more about you or get in touch, where's the best places to do so?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. My business is on LinkedIn as well. We have a Socialsendr page where we put out news about the product. I'm on Twitter, as you would expect. Yeah, so they can just get in touch via LinkedIn. And
I'd also advise anyone to listen to the podcast as well, the Two Northern Lasses podcast, because it's good fun. Talk to some good people on there as well. So I'd definitely advise anyone watching this to do that. So thank you very much for your time, Michelle. Really appreciate it. Like I said, if anyone's got any questions to put to us afterwards, if you watch it on catch up, please send them in, and I'll pass them on to Michelle.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Have a good day.